All right, so to help you understand food chains and food webs, that's why I put together this video. So a food chain, as you can kind of see, it's a one-way flow here. So it's a series of steps in an ecosystem in which organisms transfer energy, in this case chemical energy, and matter. So obviously when they're eating food, it's getting the glucose from the previous organism, okay, by eating. So energy is going to flow one way. Of course, matter is recycled over and over and over again. And sometimes in a food chain, decomposers are shown, like this one here. But sometimes you won't see it. And so those kind of stop with the top carnivore, the fox here, or what is that, a hawk or eagle over here. Okay, there's a series of steps in the ecosystem which shows how one organism eats another. And sometimes you'll see the sun, sometimes you won't, but it's just a one-way flow. So it shows energy flow. It's one organism eats another, along a chain. A food web is a slightly different. So here's a food chain within this food web. So it's a bit more complex. So they can get really huge and with lots of arrows, but it will show what each thing eats in a ecosystem. So of course, this rabbit is eating this plant. The plant's not just eaten by that, but also by the deer. Rabbit then is eaten by these two organisms. So it's a food web, which is really just a group of overlapping food chains connecting together in an ecosystem. So this is actually within, so here it is, the plant to the grasshopper that we see in the food chain, to the mouse, then to the owl over here. So that's one food chain within this food web. Again, it's just showing flow of energy from one species to the next, chemical energy, as well as how matter is going to flow as one organism eats another. That carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and the glucose is transferred. Trophic levels are the different feeding positions in a food chain. So the grass is considered the first trophic level. The mouse, second trophic level. Snake eats the mouse, so it's third in the trophic level. Now, usually people get confused because they think that this should be the first trophic level. Well, the grass is at the bottom, right? So usually there's 3 to 5 trophic levels, okay, in that food chain. Now you can also see it in more of a pyramid. So the producers, here's your first trophic level. Well, they're the highest population. Then the primary consumers, this would be where you find your mouse. Secondary consumers, this is where you would find the snake. And then the tertiary, which would be where you find, for example, the fox over here. Okay, and then on this particular food pyramid, they don't have a 5th level. Now you don't actually have to copy this. Again, really just kind of get the basic understanding. Refer back to this later as needed. We have then our quaternary consumer here because they're the top consumer. So you can also see some of the different names that we've learned. Sorry, autotrophs, first trophic level. Primary consumers, well, those are the herbivores. They're going to eat the first trophic levels. Third trophic level eats the second trophic level. So that would be a secondary consumer. In other words, a carnivore, or it could be an omnivore sometimes too. Tertiary, another carnivore, and then, of course, another carnivore. Primary consumers are another way of basically saying herbivores. They eat producers to get energy. They are the second trophic level. So that would be here, the grasshopper, okay? Because they are eating the grass. They are herbivores. Remember, the grass is the primary, first trophic level, excuse me. Here's our primary consumer. The secondary consumer is represented by our bluebird here. They are going to eat the first, or the primary consumers. So they're the third trophic level. 1, 2, 3. Tertiary is going to eat the other carnivores to get energy. They're usually going to only be 4. You can kind of keep going, as you can see, but generally speaking, we'll stop after 4. So here's first, second, third. This would be then the 4th tertiary consumer. Energy level. 10% of the energy is passed when one organism eats another. Now, the reason why only 10% is passed is because most energy has been used by the organism that it has eaten, basically, to stay alive. So fewer organisms are going to be on the top. So for example, the plant, of course, is going to use a lot of the energy that is gotten through photosynthesis in the sunlight to grow, to take water up through the roots. So when this insect comes along to eat the plant, or let's say the leaf of the plant, it's not getting 100% of the energy. This plant has used most of that energy to live. So only 10% gets passed on. Some of the energy, of course, it's lost as heat because this has some body heat. The same thing is going to be true here. Well, to move, grow, do all the things that it needs to do to stay alive, it's going to use 90% of the energy that it just got from eating the plant. So only 10% of the original energy that it started off with is going to pass over here to the bird. Some energy is going to again get lost as heat too. So 10% gets passed to the bird. But each time you go up, what you're going to see is only 10% of the energy is passed along. And this is why, of course, you're not going to see as many carnivores at the top of the food chain as you would, let's say, plants. So when you look at a food chain, of course, the population of plants is going to be the greatest. So you see that over here in the pyramid. This basically shows population. So the producers are going to have the highest population because they have the greatest amount of energy. 10% of that energy that they have is going to get passed along to the grasshopper when the grasshopper eats it. Again, the grasshopper uses 90% of that energy that they just got for life processes to live. Well, only 10% can get passed up here, so their population is going to be even smaller. So it's a smaller pyramid. So most food chains really only have 3 to 5 total chains or links in it. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? These, of course, are decomposers. So they're not considered the top of the food chain. They just eat everything that dies. Okay, hopefully that helps you understand some things.